Yeah, good morning. Yeah, it's very exciting times with AI, of course, and we heard that yesterday already, and we picked that up today with my talk about 7 AI trends shaping the future of content management and also Doxys. And first of all, you may think about 7 AI trends? Really? Isn't it just one? So I guess everyone is talking about ChatGPT. And I just want to ask you, who's already using ChatGPT? Can you? Yeah, that's amazing. It's, I would say, 50%. I get your kids all use it already to make your schoolwork and homework, of course. Because it's really, let's say, some kind of a game changer. It's some kind of the iPhone moment. So there has been some time before smartphone and after, and it is the same with GPT. So it's a time of AI before, and now we have the time of AI after, let's say, ChatGPT. But still, I'm wondering, so why 7 AI trends? So maybe marketing used ChatGPT to create this title. So I also use, of course, need the help of ChatGPT. So what could that be? So I just asked ChatGPT, what is it? What are the 7 AI trends? And I get these answers, and it is, it's a nice proposal. So automation of AI workflows, that sounds good. Even virtual assistants and chatbots, and we even show you that live. So a very good proposal, I would say. But when you think about twice, you would think, oh, it is not really an AI trend. It is an interesting use case, but it's not about directly AI. And it is even sometimes it's not really related to AI, so augmented and virtual reality, even security and privacy. What is this? That's not an AI trend. So GPT is really amazing what you can do, but it's also dumb. And it's even amazing and dumb within one response. So we really need to learn how to use this technology. So that was a nice try to create my presentation with ChatGPT, but it didn't work out. So maybe I'm a bad prompt engineer, and we talk about prompt engineering as well. And if you are a good prompt engineer, so when you're able to talk to humans and to machines, then you can get very high salaries, at least in the US. So maybe you apply remotely for some job in the US as a prompt engineer. But I need to do my talks by myself. So to ensure that it's really, hopefully, a smart keynote, or not a dumb keynote in this case. So we promised 7 AI trends, and I really deliver 7 AI trends, even when we are talking mostly about generative AI. So the big trend, of course, is what is called generative AI. So let's say more or less creating text from text. But our first trend is some kind of a meta trend. So this extremely fast-pacing innovation in AI. That's really amazing, and that is an important trend. And then I put some sub-trends around generative AI. The first is, and that it is a good bridge to the talk of yesterday, it's responsible AI. That's very important, of course. Then it is more than GPT. So I tell you a bit about what is behind GPT, what are other options, which are called large language models. Then we have this prompt engineering, which is important when we use these kind of technologies. Finally, we are talking a bit about general purpose AI. So I can use these new models just out of the box, or should I train my own model? And finally, all these language models about text. But there are other trends which are called multimodal machine learning, which means not only text, for example, for documents, also layout, or just other sensor information. It's more about text you can use for training. And the 7th trend is what we call also contextual AI. So it's very important to use more business context information, not just rely on the AI itself and use additional information you have. But of course, most of these trends definitely are centered around this, let's say, mega trend of generative AI. So now we are going through every trend. First of all, this fast-pacing innovation. And of course, we do not go into every detail of these machine learning models and algorithms, but it started off with a Google paper about calling attention is all you need. And then even last year, we talked a bit about all these BERTs and transformers. But now, even 1 year later, you have this exploding tree of new models around large language models. And it is more than GPT, as you can see here. And there's much more coming, of course. And that is our strategy, because I can really not, let's say, foresee what will be the next big trend, what will be the next best machine learning model next year. I really do not know. So that is our strategy of composable AI. So we allow you, let's say, to change the horses on the fly, which means to change cognitive service providers in our platform, because we also do not know what will be the best one in next year and 2 years. Okay, next one is responsible AI, and we had a great talk on that from Hannah yesterday. I also like to give you one additional example, but I also want to highlight the statement of AI risk from many people who invented these kind of technologies. So that is really only one sentence, and they say, okay, maybe we should treat this technology more or less in the same way as global pandemic or even as nuclear bombs, something like that. It could be really risky for human being. It's signed, for example, by Geoffrey Hinton, one of the godfathers of AI. It's signed by Sam Altman of OpenAI and so on. So we, as a society, we really need to think about how to use this technology. One very interesting additional example, Hannah had many of that yesterday, is a paper, a very new one, a scientific study where they took from a medical forum different questions and asked physicians to answer them and asked ChatGPT to answer them. And then, of course, they asked again the humans, what is a better answer? And the result is a bit scary, I would say. And it is not scary only in terms of quality, it's also scary in terms of empathy. So yesterday we had the question, do you want to judge by a machine or a human? And many said, okay, maybe by a human because they have a higher empathy. But if you look here to the results, so here's the highest empathy. And the people from the answer say, okay, hey, ChatGPT has a higher empathy than the physicians. And for the quality, it's the same. So what does that mean? So on the one hand, maybe that means, okay, you do not need any physicians anymore, so it's scary about their jobs. But on the other hand, maybe you think twice, because it's really hard for people to really judge and evaluate answers from medical experts. So in fact, they just believe the quality is better, or maybe but they really do not know. And that is really terrifying and scary when you think about fake news, when you think about our society, when you think about democracy and so on. So it's really a risky technology, and we need to take that into account as a society. So that was my additional part on responsible AI. Let's come back to more the technology. Maybe some other part, of course. So it's even when you think about, let's say, some proof of truth, typically in case of pictures. A normal picture mostly is a proof of truth so far, but not in the future anymore with all these deep fakes. So who of you believing as of today, so we're living in 2023, what is real? A pope like this or a king like this? Maybe, of course, you know that this was a deep fake. That's a very prominent example of a deep fake that's not real. And of course, you know that the new King of England is real, even looking like this. But what is real? What is really truth? Even with some kind of a picture, you do not know anymore. Okay, coming a bit more back to the technology, so to generative AI. What is behind that? It's just, and that's amazing, it's just trained about predicting the next word. That's everything. And it looks like that if you do that with, let's say, billions of documents, just training when you get an input of text, what is the next correct word, that's something about, let's say, even when it's just math, to learn some model of the world. Even to learn some, let's say, implicit semantic, even it is just statistic and math. on the language. And that is a bit of the game changer. And it is even when you apply that, so natural language is some kind of the new UI or the new kind of human-computer interaction. And we are talking not only about GPT, we are talking also about, let's say, Google, of course, is trying to catch up. Meta has a very big model, which is open source, but which cannot be used commercially. Hugging Face is an open source platform where more and more large language models are published, so much more there. What we are doing is we embed these large language models in our services. We start with GPT, of course. We will add models from the open source world. And of course, we'll add even more services and more machine learning models around these large language models. So when you talk about GPT or ChatGPT, there's much more out there than even these GPT. And how you use that? So I talked, okay, it's everything about, let's say, natural language is a new human-computer interface, and it's called prompt engineering in this case. So how you talk to these large language models to get the best output. So you want that these kind of models do a task for you, and then you need to talk in some kind of optimized way with the system. A very, very simple example is, for example, instruction from this text, please, format me all from this input, all the names as a comma-separated file. And even something like that is possible. And now when you think about, okay, we're giving them a bigger input, just a document, and asking questions about the document. That is possible, and we will show that live. And we have integrated exactly this in our system. So just think about that is our machine learning environment in DOCSIS, and we integrated these OpenAI provider. So when you just think about information extraction today, you just say, okay, I want to have the contact name, want to have the company name, maybe what is the subject of this text. You just provide for a descriptor a simple question. And that's all you need to do in our system. So you just describe what you need. You do not even need to train anything. You use a general purpose AI, describe, oh, I need to have the company name, this person from this supplier. Of course, it's not working all the time, but it is already incredibly good and so easy to use. And that is how we use that, for example, for information extraction. So what are the use cases we will implement or already implemented with these large language models? First of all, we always talk about classification of documents. We always talk about information extraction, and I showed that already. And Douglas yesterday showed you how we integrated these information extraction in WebCube, and you have that also in WinCube and MobileCube, of course. But there are more use cases. So you can also use it for question answering. And we will also show that to you. So Douglas will do that in some minutes with a, let's say, a virtual chatbot where you can talk to documents and really, let's say, ask questions. What is about these, let's say, contract or document? But there are even more use cases. So, for example, we can in the future predict future workflow steps. And that was a vision we already had some years ago, but that didn't work out so easily. But now with large language model, that is really possible so that these models propose additional workflows for you. Or we even go further, and even we show that live as well from Douglas. So think about Business Studio and think about, oh, I want to have a new e-file application for real estate or something like that. You can ask the system, please propose me a data model. What kind of data structure should I use for a real estate application? And you get a good first answer, which you can use. And of course, you can use it also for natural language search. So many additional use cases we have. And we put that into, let's say, we call that prompt templates. So we even provide that as a library of predefined templates for you. So Douglas will show you more of that in a few minutes. So what is the fifth AI trend? And that is a bit more technical. So now I explained, okay, we're just using a general purpose pre-trained model with prompt engineering. So that is called prompt engineering. So I would say you have 10% of the effort and get maybe 80% of the result, just the best guess here. And in many cases, that should be enough. But then you can think about maybe it's interesting to train my own model in terms of fine-tuning. So what you never will do is really train your own large language model. That still costs hundreds, thousands, or millions of euros. So we always use an existing large language model, but adapt that for your own use case. And that could be even still have 50% more effort for you, but of course, maybe a higher accuracy as well. What we are doing is we even try to optimize and automate that for use with AutoML. So with the documents you have in DOCSIS, automatically fine-tune such a model for you so that you do not need to, let's say, label data and so on, have all these manual effort of training a system. But there's also another topic I want to highlight, that is this contextual AI. Not only thinking about using such a recognition engine, let's say, independent from any other information, but validating information, and then with the extra context information, maybe coming to 100% of accuracy. And that is our last trend. Even the both trends together, we come back to the typical example of invoice processing, and we now integrate. We had that also yesterday, for example, Azure Form Recognizer, which is a typical multimodal pre-trained model for layout and text. But that is just a recognition engine. And we have our own recognition engine more based on rule sets and then on the fuzzy matching on supplier data. But when we combine all these, so all the information from advanced AI, from the context information you have in DOCSIS with the context information you have in ERP system, and validate the data, then you get really a trusted, predicted result. So really validated data. You are not interested just in the good recognition engine. You finally, especially, for example, in invoice data, in invoice processing, you need to have validated data. And there, this additional information and this contextual AI comes in, and that's very important for us to mention that as well. Okay, that were the 7 AI trends. But of course, the question is, how do these trends shaping the future of intelligent content automation in DOCSIS, of course, and in content management in general? And I'd like to hand over to Douglas. Please come on stage and a warm welcome.
Hi again.
So we like to present now, of course, how we apply that in DOCSIS with some cool demos.
All right. I will do my best. So we're going to start with 5 initiatives or AI initiatives we have in DOCSIS, and at the end we're going to wrap up with what are the trends that we see in general, excuse me, in content management. Okay, so let's start with our intelligent content assistant. So I've heard that some of you were already at our demo points and saw this. So for some of you, it will not be something new, but this is our intelligent content assistant. So it's a chat that you have. It's a Windows client installed in your Windows, and then it monitors your screen and tries to help you with some of the tasks, content-related tasks you have. So let's see the first demo we have. Let's say, hey, Doxy, and this is an email that I received, okay, insurance claim, and here is really just to demonstrate what is possible with this chat, okay? So I would click play, and you see there that DOCSIS, when it's running, so it's going to pop up, and you can chat with it. And you can ask questions about this email. So in this case here, we see there in the top some actions that Doxy predicted already that I could do with this email. So obviously these actions are related to DOCSIS, okay? So I can start a workflow, but I can also make questions about this document. What is this? What is the insurance number? And the answers are pretty accurate, as you can see. And in this case, we are going to start a workflow in DOCSIS. Okay, so based on this email that we've just received, so it was in my Outlook, and we just started the workflow. And we basically extracted all of the relevant information from this email for this particular workflow. So this is the use case number 1. Use case number 2, we have here this NDA, and I know that people tend to sign NDAs without really reading through. So but there are a couple of things that you should be concerned about an NDA before signing it. It's obviously a very simple example, but we are confronted with that every day, or very often, so with NDAs. What if, instead of me trying to read all of this all the time, I just ask Doxy to help me out? So what is important to me to know about this NDA before I sign it? So there is Doxy again, or Doxy. And one more time, actions that we could predict from this particular, what I can do with this document. But in this case now, we are really interested on what are the important things or what I should know about this NDA. So things like who is involved, what are the parties in this NDA. So in this case, it's Nextverse Technology and SCR Group. Now, the next question, what is the effective date of this NDA? There is the answer. So April 12, 2023. So when does the NDA end? It's the next question. And there we go. So 2 years after this, the mutual signing thereof. And how much do we have to pay? So it's an important question in case we disclose any information. There we go. So it's very precise, 50,000 euros for each violation. Okay? Oh, sorry, Swiss francs. No, euros. All right, so this is actually just to show you guys the possibilities that you have. We're going to talk about, one more time, about prompt fast starters, but you can think of defining this prompt engineering stuff directly in Doxys, and then you can cover multiple use cases using this client. And this is actually what we did. So, and by the way, again, so if you haven't seen it live, you can go to our demo point and you can chat with Mark. So he's going to be happy to show you this one more time. Moving on, switching gears here. So we're going to talk about how we can create data models in Business Studio leveraging this kind of technology. And this is really amazing. It works really, really, really well. We've done several testing, and it's amazing. So in this example here, we are one more time in our modern kitchen, and we are going to use our AI assistant, and we're going to ask, please help me create a construction project e-file or workspace. Okay, so in general, so anyone here for engineering knows how important structure is. And in this case, we are describing that we need more calculation perspective in this template. And then after a few minutes, we get we get this photo structure in place and also the dialogue. Okay, so here we have the photo structure and the dialogue with the metadata that we need for this particular construction project. So imagine how much time it saves from you by just saying, okay, this is what I need, and then you get this template back from what AI can generate for you. I think this is amazing, and think now of workflows and anything that you can do with this kind of technology. All right, so moving on. So we saw actually yesterday. I'm not going to show it again, but here's just a screenshot, of our magic button in WebCube. We have the same in WinCube and MobileCube as well. And typical use cases is going to be like automated metadata extraction, content summary. Those are things that we saw yesterday already. Finally, we still have our new product. This is again leveraging Azure Cognitive Services, Form Recognizer, and even Azure OpenAI. Okay, Amazon as well. For some use cases, we use it. And it's a combination of different AI frameworks, the best that we have there. And putting again in the context of your data, and you get the best results. So one more time, beta release is coming soon. So stay tuned and connect with our sales reps in case you're interested in participating in it. So the last point here that we want to talk about is prompt fast starters, and this is a new category of fast starters. And it's really so when we think about certain use cases for you upfront, and we put in our library of fast starters. And we're really interested on more use cases that we can cover out of the box. And the same principle here applies. So with one click, you import this intelligence into the system, and you can start using it immediately. Okay, so what is different with these fast starters? Well, first, obviously, then it's what we saw before from Gregor. So you define what are the prompts that we are sending to OpenAI, as an example. But also we define which context they are going to be used. Okay, so if this is going to be in Doxy, or if this is going to be an inbound processing, as an example. So I receive emails, I receive documents. So this is when this prompt fast starters should be used. So this is actually what differs a little bit from the other ones, other kind of fast starters. Okay, so we've seen the 5 AI initiatives we have in our product. And then let's summarize this, what is the impact or what is changing within the content management space. One of the trends that we are seeing are things like Microsoft Copilot. Have you guys tried it already? Nobody? Oh, one. Early adopter. It's really amazing. So you can, summarize. Oh, please prepare me for my next meeting, and then you receive a couple of bullet points of things you need to do, or create me a report. So you can do this kind of things with Microsoft Copilot. It's really impressed, really, and this is about this intelligent content creation. We're not going to pretend that we are going to do this. I think Microsoft does this really well, and we should just use this technology. But what we certainly can do is this, what we call intelligent content management, generally speaking. And it's about the metadata, automatically metadata creation or extraction, search with natural language queries, and much more. So we're doing this. Or we've seen also a new trend emerging, and this is really chatting with documents. There are even some startups, all they do is about this. So you upload a PDF as an example, and then you can start chatting about this document. So it might be very helpful for big contracts or big documents and etc. that you have to review. So it's actually it might be helpful, and it saves you time as well. We have Doxy for that. Well, intelligent document processing and input management. So this is really about simplified classification and extraction. I mean, it's way easier now to classify content than before. So by just defining these prompts, this is a new trend, and we are actually doing this already. It's pretty much to say out of the box, because it's very simple, or it should be simple to define a prompt. True knowledge discovery. I mean, because before you guys probably have heard of enterprise search and this kind of things. So I think now we are reaching this inflection point that is super easy to understand or have this wisdom coming from documents that we now believe really in true knowledge discovery. Because enterprise search is, well, it does work sometimes, but it's complex, complicated to combine many different repositories and really extract knowledge out of it. But now we are really reaching this point that we can easily have that. And at least, intelligent content automation is pretty much what we do. There's, workflow definition or real automation based upon your data. So we are, again, seeing this as a trend, and we are well prepared for this. So these are, let's say, the 7 AI trends and how we are reacting or responding to that within Doxys and in content management in general. So I think we are happy to answer questions as well, if we still have time. Do we?
Couple of minutes. Yep.
2 minutes. Okay. So does anyone have questions for us?
Got more time.
Yeah, more than 2 minutes.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
A great presentation. How do you want to use the contextual AI in the DCS context you mentioned before?
You want to answer? Should I?
Yeah. Yeah, so what we just want to highlight that we're even doing that already. So not only, let's say, especially in invoice automation, it is not about, let's say, just extracting data from invoice, but you want to have validated data and, of course, map data to your, let's say, ERP system, to the suppliers you have. And that is what we are currently already doing. So we are enhancing especially that with these integration, for example, of Azure Form Recognizer, but we just do not apply apply that, let's say, out of the box. We always, after that, let's say, vote the information with other information we have exactly from the ERP system, so from additional context, and we validate the data, because both of that is more powerful. And even if you think about Hannah Fry yesterday, about the example, of course, it is so important finally that you do not only believe on some AI, let's say, engine, some recognition engine, but that you always, let's say, validate the data in many aspects. And the true source you always have is your own data. It's in DOCSIS typically, but it's also in your ERP system, of course. And the combination, that is really powerful. Of course, it's not, let's say, as exciting as just this large language model and AI, because it's a bit, I would say, even a bit more boring to do that, but it's still very important for an enterprise system. It's just really the mapping, the fusion, the validation of the information from different sources.
Another one there.
Yeah, thank you very much for the very good presentation. I have a question. As I understood, you will integrate AI or ChatGPT into DOCSIS and to validate data and all this stuff. As I would think about it, is that the extraction of this information is going to ChatGPT, and how about it if you have, let's say, high secure information that's maybe transferred to, let's say, anywhere else, and it's integrated in your product or in the product itself? So how do you care about compliance on GDPR topics?
Yeah, very good question. Yes, so first of all, as you mentioned, of course, yeah, we're integrating, let's say, these GPT stuff or OpenAI, but it's not only directly OpenAI, it's also Azure OpenAI. And within Azure, of course, you have all the data protection regulations from Azure and Microsoft in place, all the certifications. And you can even opt out, let's say, that these data, or they even can ensure that they do not use any data for training. What they do, for example, at Azure is they store these information for 14 days in order to avoid misuse or to check that. Because we have that on responsible AI. You do not know really what people are doing with this technology, and we are just extracting some data with documents. That's definitely not scary, but other maybe create fancy phishing mails with GPT. So therefore, Microsoft stored that, but you can opt out for that. And for example, we already did that, and it has been already accepted by Microsoft. So when we're using Azure OpenAI in our cloud, nothing is stored, never ever. So that is the answer to this data privacy, or the first answer. The second one is that we are also, and that is with this open source large language model, we are also developing a system, we call that DOCSIS Deep Content Analytics Service, by the way, where you can really deploy your own large language model, not training them. So you use an open source one from Hugging Face, for example, and then you can run that on premise. That are typically models which are not so large as GPT, but they're very interesting new models. So one example is called Falcon. There's a 7 billion parameter model, which is not so big, which you can run really on more or less standard hardware with very good results as well. So even if you think about, okay, I will never ever send any data to the cloud, that would be the answer, so that it might be also possible. I still believe, of course, GPT, all these very big models are a bit better, but maybe even the open source model are also an option for you. So that is both options you have, either the data protection rule from Microsoft or using that on premise.
And just to add, we already have OpenAI integration, so we're not going to add, it's already there. Okay. Another question.
Thank you. Thank you for this great presentation. My question would be what your take on the AI Act is coming this year. So will this AI Act in any kind change the way, or are you foreseeing that it will change the way how you use AI?
In our special case, I do not see any impact, because we are, let's say, doing not very, really critical stuff here. So it's a very, let's say, dedicated use case for your documents, your enterprise information. It's still your data. So that is not really about the effect about creating fake news and so on. So for applying these technologies, I believe there is no impact. Of course, we even cannot foresee. So when in the EU they say, okay, you must not use large language models anymore, of course, then it's done. But I definitely do not believe that this will happen. So there might be some regulation, but especially based on the use cases. So for example, with nuclear technology, there are also many, of course, regulations, and you are maybe not allowed to create a atom bomb, of course, but you can use that for of course, other use cases. And in this case, with AI, especially for the use case we're using, I do not believe that there will be any impact.
So now I'm going to talk about my personal opinion. I think we're going to have long time still to learn how to use this technology. So if you're asking more for a society perspective, it's going to change a lot, and we're going to learn how to use it, and a lot of regulation will need to happen to avoid that we're misusing this technology. So it's actually a very profound topic to discuss. Like what are the impacts of technologies, even like social network a couple of years ago, right? So it changed completely our society, and this one is another of those, I believe. So maybe we can have a keynote on that one as well.
Yeah. And there are many, of course, when you think about face recognition, of course, you want to regulate that, and in which context it's allowed and not. But again, in our use cases, I'm pretty sure
we're good. We're safe.
We are quite safe. Yeah.
Just one question about suspicioncy and AI technology. What we've learned doing an AI-based pilot in our company was that people are kind of suspicious dealing or using that helpful technology. And what would you recommend to overcome that suspicioncy inside organizations?
Yeah, so from my perspective, also these chatbot or this virtual assistant is a good example, because that is a combination of machine and human, and then of course you're not, let's say, any kind overruled. So it's helping you, and then you're getting really in contact with the technology. But it's not only about everything is automated and black box.
Yeah.
As a virtual assistant, of course, you're still as a human in the driver's seat, but you just get help. And I believe that is also, let's say, helping the people to understand what the technology can do for them. And of course, helps in such a case.
And I think my answer would be to start small and really looking at particular tasks that people have hurdles, like it consumes a lot of my time. And then you go there particularly, and you say, okay, let's try if an assistant like Doxy could help you, because it's normal to people to be afraid of new technology, right? So it's like there's a process, this innovation, diffusion of innovation kind of thing. Like the early adopters, the ones who already tried ChatGPT, and the laggers, the ones that are still using Blackberries or were using BlackBerry still last year. So, but it's starting small, I think. It's really change management kind of thing. And then when people see the benefit, I think they will embrace it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Hi. Is there any particular training required with the AI in terms of the customer data, and does it have to be structured in any particular way for it to work, or is it sort of out of the box, pre-trained and ready to go?
Yeah, so and that is the one of the game changer. It really works out of the box. So that is about this prompt engineering. So directly use these big general use AI, and you predefine some prompts, and then it is working. as I explained, of course, you may think about, let's say, some fine-tuning, and we will all need to get more experience on that, but maybe that is even not needed. So that's still an open question, how many fine-tuning you need for a certain use case, or whether you can use that directly out of the box. But for many use cases, and that is our experience even when using now these Doxys and chatting with that and using that in a demo, you can use that without training with your own data.
Thank you.
No problem. So I've been advised already that time is up. So thanks for listening and
come just to the demo booth, so you can play around with that as well.
Exactly, and we can still chat after that. So if you still have questions, we're more than happy to answer them.
Yeah, so even you can chat with us, not only with ChatGPT.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Very good. Well done.